You know, usually in January, we get these run-of-the-mill psychological thrillers that are just sort of dumped here because they don't know what else to do with them. When it comes to John Lee Hancock's The Little Things, we got a star-studded cast and a compelling enough mystery, but I did not expect the film to be as good as it was. Stick around and find out why you don't want to miss The Little Things when it hits HBO Max Friday, January 29th.
James Bond. Cannonball!
Been like this all day.
Did you rub my lamp?
1,000 generations to the Yuna. Here we go.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? And welcome to FilmSpeak, where the conversation continues after the credits. If this is our first time meeting, hey, my name is Griffin. I'm an LA-based entertainment journalist and film critic, and if you want to be a part of that conversation, you are definitely in the right place. Consider subscribing to the channel for more insight, analysis, and interviews behind your favorite movies. The Little Things is written and directed by John Lee Hancock, and it stars Denzel Washington, Rami Malek, and Jared Leto. Deputy Sheriff Joe Deke Deacon joins forces with Sergeant Jim Baxter to search for a serial killer who's terrorizing Los Angeles. As they track the culprit, Baxter is unaware that the investigation is dredging up echoes of Deke's past, uncovering disturbing secrets that could threaten more than his case. So I'm a sucker for a good psychological thriller. Anything that gives me minor David Fincher vibes is usually going to win me over in some capacity. But I gotta say, when The Little Things first started, I found it to be incredibly generic, very run-of-the-mill, and I was a little worried about where it was happening. It's only when we get to the end and a certain twist happens or a certain reveal happens that kind of reframes the entire film that I really appreciated how bold and different John Lee Hancock's film was here. He could have gone the easy route, and for me, I thought for sure that I was going to be able to guess the ending of this film. But as the pieces start to align and as the film slowly starts to build on what came before, you realize that you're not in for what you thought you were in for, and it ends up being an incredible surprise. The ending truly was unexpected. It left me guessing the entire way through, and that's the best thing I think you can say about a psychological thriller such as this. And yes, it does require your investment, and I do think that it can suffer a bit at times from a slower pace, because you're thinking, oh, I've got this whole thing figured out in my head. But I have to say, the slower pace got me invested in these characters, specifically Rami Malek's character and Denzel Washington's character, who are almost the same person, but like a couple decades removed. Denzel Washington's character is basically going to be Rami Malek's character after he goes through some traumatic incidents on the force. And I liked that dynamic between the two of them. Joe, having been in a position like this before, who has seen a serial killer at work and how it's completely consumed him as he's obsessed over it, he's been there and he sees the seeds of that starting to plant in the mind of Rami Malek's character. And so seeing him try to mentor him out of that situation and get him to get out of his own head and look at the case as what it is, I thought that was a really compelling way of telling a detective story. Denzel's character is good at what he does because these victims, these girls who have been murdered in horrendous ways, they live with him because of his own failings, versus Rami's character, who can still sort of compartmentalize. He's able to go home to his family and kids and live that life, but he's motivated by his daughters, obviously, to catch this killer of women. And then slowly, as the case begins to unravel, you start to see that Rami's lines between his family, his domestic life, and the case are starting to get blurred as he just goes in on this entire thing and obsesses over it, about not knowing who this guy is. And both Denzel's character and Rami's character basically take this oath of being a detective, of discovering these killers as a lifelong responsibility, basically owing them their service because they paid the ultimate sacrifice. And so when people are asking Joe, Denzel Washington's character, why he's not able to move on, why these incidents stay with him, is because he doesn't see the victims as just a body count. He sees them as people, and the fact that he's not able to solve these cases haunts him to his very core. And in a lot of ways, that entire mantra really reminded me of Zodiac, and why Zodiac was so effective at exploring these characters because ultimately the torment is not in, oh, we know the killer, we know we're gonna find him, and that confrontation is gonna be really fierce and intimidating. No, the real torment is in the unknown, is knowing that there is still someone out there who is killing innocent lives and you could be affected in the process. And then how that torment slowly eats away at the inside until eventually you snap. And that's honestly what separates The Little Things from other run-of-the-mill, typical psychological thrillers. Yes, The Little Things could basically be boiled down to a David Fincher's greatest hits album played by your local bar's cover band, and like a really solid cover band at that. But it takes its own route, and ultimately the title and the whole thesis of the film is that it's those little details that you cling onto, that you are still searching for answers for. Those are the things that tear you apart, and they're the things that'll get you caught. You'll inevitably lose whatever soul you have left to this case and this faceless killer. And that's why I gotta say, I think this is John Lee Hancock's best film. He really shows his prowess and ability as a director, and not only just in scripting and storytelling, which he did by himself, by the way, which I think probably benefited him in the long run, but in terms of creating an unsettling atmosphere. It never quite dissipates. There's never a moment where you feel like, okay, there's the light at the end of the tunnel, and that's because that's the way these characters are viewing the world around them. There's a methodical movement to the shots here, and when he's not slowly moving the camera, it's very static. And again, it could have been very easy to emulate the David Fincher style crime thriller, but John Lee Hancock, he makes it his own. Yeah, there's definitely some inspiration there, but he doesn't over-rely on just the David Fincher model. It's a John Lee Hancock film. And as for the performances, I love Denzel in this. It's a very quiet and internal performance. Definitely one of his better ones in a while, but then again, Denzel just always knocks it out of the park. Rami Malek, I wasn't sold on at first, but as the film kind of picked up and went on and I saw where the movie was going, I was able to get more into his character a little bit more. He has a few over-dramatized outbursts, but I think, those can be forgiven because ultimately the character was someone very compelling. And here's the big takeaway. I didn't hate Jared Leto in this movie. I know, it's crazy. And listen, you might be someone who really enjoys Jared Leto. For me, he's just a bit too pretentious and hit or miss in his performances. This one, I don't know. He was actually pretty great. And I think the funny thing is like I can totally see Jared Leto being this creepy guy who they think is the serial killer. And I don't know, it was just all really well done on his part. He never entered the territory of overacting. And there's a great scene that I think is easily the scene of the movie where the three of them are together and they're having this interrogation and they're confronting one another and everyone's sort of on the brink of snapping at one another. And I think all the actors kind of trying to one-up one another in that scene is part of what makes it work. So really, kudos to everyone involved. That was a really well-done sequence. And then I gotta say it, my man, Thomas Newman, literally enhanced every moment of this movie by tenfold. I mean, he always enhances every film that he scores by 10 fucking fold. I mean, it's Thomas Newman, but he did a great job of really giving this movie texture and life, which I gotta commend the guy on. Before we give you my final verdict on The Little Things, guys, why don't you take a second here and like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the FilmSpeak channel so you don't miss out on more early movie reviews, television reviews, interviews, all that great stuff. We like to say the conversation continues after the credits, and of course, we'd love to have you be part of that conversation. So The Little Things isn't something that's going to blow you away, but it is a very effective subversion of the psychological thriller genre. It places the emphasis on the detectives and how the case slowly starts to unravel them, and we get some amazing, chilling, edge-of-your-seat moments in the process. Obviously, Jared Leto lends to some of that, being the creepy serial killer kind of guy. And I think there's a lot of fascinating ideas here that John Lee Hancock tries to explore. Does he succeed at exploring all of them? No, I think maybe another draft of the script would have enhanced the movie that we got, but ultimately, I mean, it's a nice little thriller. Like I said, I think the best comparison here is like a really solid cover band playing like the greatest hits of David Fincher. It's never going to be quite as good as what that artist sounds like or what David Fincher's, movies are like, but you don't hate yourself watching. You're like, oh, I mean, these guys have talent. There's something here. There is something magical working. And it was a nice throwback to the classic, thrillers of the 90s and so forth. And so gotta give John Lee Hancock credit there. It was an enjoyable enough film. And so for all of those reasons and the reasons I've mentioned throughout this review, I'm ultimately going to be giving The Little Things a 7 out of 10. But now I want to hear from you all, and I want to know what your favorite psychological thriller is down in the comment section below. Let's keep it focused on, crime and serial killers and all that stuff. Let's have a great conversation down there. And if you have seen The Little Things, be sure to let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section as well. As always, guys, you can like FilmSpeak on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, just search FilmSpeak. And if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right. That's going to do it for this review, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Take care.